Well, good morning again. I'm Reuven, and I'm the founder of Awardpool. Our platform is geared towards the digital generation. Think of the types of people who don't make a distinction between the physical world and the digital world. We've got a place and a platform that enables and engages those types of users in new and interesting ways. We provide all the tools that you need to customize NFTs, create custom attributes, deploy against multiple blockchains, and create that in a way that's compelling and interesting and engaged for those users. We provide the tools for artists, for musicians, for athletes, for influencers to quickly and easily create their own brand using their own components in a very compelling way. Think Shopify for NFTs. We are deployed in a way that allows you to use your social currency to engage your users by getting to do actions, to click, to play, to download. And in response to that, you get essentially rewards for those and points. Those rewards and points in the form of tokens and NFTs. All the components you need to engage those users are simple and easy and embedded. We make that experience seamless and compelling and easy. So you don't have to worry about the complexities of setting up your wallets and all the complexities of crypto. It's seamless process, quick, click, go. We've got a front end where you can customize it and a back end where you can administer all the various pieces of the puzzle, adding components such as custom attributes, the complete customization of images. Images are created on the fly dynamically. So if you're creating, let's say, a game, you can define how those games are created. If you're creating a kind of evolution of multiple components, if you're creating a league, if you're the NBA, the NFL, or any sports league, and you want to create your own NBA Top Shots, you're good to go. Wow, that was 2 minutes. That was fast. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Reuven. Just super exciting. Can't wait to be trying it later. So Colin, you want to do a demo for Unifty?
So thank you very much. Like Reuven started off talking about how they aim to be the Shopify of NFTs, we aim to offer content management services. So we like to think of ourselves somewhat like a WordPress of NFTs. What we mean there is we don't necessarily create the NFTs per se. What we do is we help creators match with their consumers, match with their customers. We see an interesting opportunity with NFTs, specifically what came before. We did not have the power necessarily with analog art, with analog content, to necessarily see what was happening. And still, even within the digital world, we can't see that across platforms, across different utilizations. With NFTs, with Unifty, we make that accessible and easy for artists, creators, users to access. First thing when you come see our site, we work on Celo, much with others. We help artists to create assets, to create these new NFTs, move their assets inside of it. We also set up a nice marketplace, which charges a reasonable fee. And very importantly, you own everything that you deploy. We're not like other platforms where you launch your NFT, it's controlled by somebody else and you're beholden to their rules and restrictions. This is truly decentralized. Artists are controllers of their own destiny, can work with their consumers, can work with their market the way they wish to do. We also add lots of other features that allow users to create new farms that are simple and easy to touch with a click of a button, no coding required. And again, you own everything. You manage the relationship between the creator, the content consumer, and we allow others to build on top of this infrastructure in a way that they know and can rely on is as solid and as reliable as the blockchain itself. So that's very quickly a bit about Unifty. I invite you to check out more at unifty.io. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, this has been super exciting to see. I remember when I first minted an NFT on Unifty for Celo, it was like, I think I minted like what was like the core community for Celo kind of art. And I remember selling it for like one Celo each and stuff. And then the aftermarket turned out to be really crazy. It got resold for 250 Celo, and there's somebody trying to sell it for 25K Celo. It's an insane amount of valuation. But what I liked about the platform is like it was easy to connect directly to Celo network and be able to mint an NFT. And I really like how you're doing the interoperability part, like the idea that if I'm an artist, I can't afford to sell on Ethereum, I can do it on a testnet, or I can do it on Celo mainnet, and then any buyer can move artwork across platform. All right. So with that in mind, let's take it to the panel. We have two amazing projects from Reuven and Colin and stuff, who are very what I would consider experts in the NFT space. So let's kick it off with a question, and based on this question, we can take the conversation, and if anyone from the audience has any question, please add it to the chat, and we'll try to ask the panel later if we have time. So the first question is, why do you guys think NFTs are so popular right now in 2021? We saw the rise of DeFi the DeFi summer 2020, but nobody predicted that NFT will get even higher, more popular than DeFi and stuff. So in your own words, what do you think? Where's it coming?
I can go first if you'd like. For what I see, it's sort of this. I have this hypothesis of the digital generation. That generation doesn't make a distinction between meeting their friends on the playground, meeting their friends in Fortnite, right? They don't make a distinction between a real thing, a trading card, and a digital trading card. And I think for the first time, NFTs represent a sort of combination of the sort of tactile components of the real world in a digital landscape. And I think we're at this inflection point where this generation really is embracing that kind of digital value you get from digital things. They see that a game skin is just as valuable as a new pair of sneakers.
Yeah, I think I'll kind of expand. I agree with exactly what Reuven said. And I think, as we all know, there's a massive context going on with COVID around the world, and people are looking at ways to do things remotely. NFTs are a natural way to do it. I had an interesting conversation with a Parisian art gallery yesterday that's looking at getting into NFTs. And they said for a long time, they had lots of very talented artists that had a hard time ever building their community and monetizing what they were doing. Even if there was a contract behind that it's not very nice to buy a contract that says I own this piece of digital artwork. With NFTs, we have the first time where we can actually buy something, attribute value to that, and it has a nice user experience. That's something that NFTs have brought. If you expand that a bit further and you talk about things like games, one of the things that we always had before was a bilateral market that would have to happen between a game developer and a buyer. And I wouldn't necessarily trust that the game developer would keep my digital land that I could resell onto a third party without enforcing lots of rules and possibly limiting that. Now with things like NFTs, we can actually build games that are built for that. I can have the assurance that my asset is my asset, and I can sell that on to Yaz or somebody else. Maybe they get that kind of return like his friends were getting on his NFTs. But we have that assurance, and now what we've seen recently is digital parcels of land, digital homes in things like Decentraland are going for $500,000 each. That is a very strong proof that people value this in a different way that they ever valued additions and features inside of common video games.
Yeah, and disclaimer, I'm also a landowner in Decentraland, and yeah, I've seen the valuation how it increased. It's insane because it's sort of it kind of reminds me of Ready Player One. I think that's where the inspiration came from. But owning virtual real estate asset, nobody would even think that was possible before, right? And recently, one of my new favorite projects, I don't know if either one of you has messed around with it, is Zed Run, owning a digital horse NFT that can race in digital games, and that the concept is insane, right? But based on what you were saying, both Reuven and Colin, I think the theme that you're trying to get at is there's an empowering aspect of NFTs for the artists, right? Which kind of brings me to the next panel question that I think I wanted to ask you, which is, what do you think would be an interesting application of NFT with from a social impact point of view? You talked about empowering the artists. I think one thing that would come to mind, empowering artists in emerging markets, like we saw in the segment with Philippines and stuff before this. But I'm kind of curious. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah,
I'll take.
Go ahead.
I was going to say one of our really interesting conversations that we had in the early days of speaking with the cLabs team and the Celo team. One of our major areas is to really kind of focus on helping new talent use the social media tools that they have at hand, using mobile applications, and connecting their art, their creations with a wider market. Of course, having a native payment that is in an asset that we can trust the value of, that can move globally in the matter of a couple of seconds at minimal cost, changes everything. but on the same speed, in the same mechanism of security, you also need to have the other side of that trade, which is what is being created. So the ability to merge NFTs and CUSD in the same thing is quite powerful. So we're very excited about how we can do that. We can maintain everything within a mobile infrastructure and make it quite easy for the creator and the buyer to interact with each other and maintain an ongoing relationship, which you can't get through more traditional means.
Yeah, just to sort of elaborate on that a little bit, what we see this opportunity as NFTs as a kind of, package to enable things that weren't possible before. So if you're, as Colin said, a creator, and you've got this ability to sort of say that I can identify who the holder of a digital item is, and then have a sort of ability to redeem that for something. So it's not just about a speculation that I'm going to buy a digital house or a piece of art and it's going to become worth more. It's this ability to say, I now have the capability to say the holder of my digital asset has empowered to have something else behind the scenes of my tour. If I'm a musician, how-to if I'm an athlete, rights if I'm a movie producer. And all this now has been decentralized to a point where I can control my creative, my copyrights, my assets in a way that was never possible before. And now I'm not beholden to having an agent that has to go sell my artwork. I can do that. I can be successful. I can define who and how and why my content is used, right? And that opens up a whole new world for this type of content.
That's amazing. Yeah. It sort of comes down to, like, if you look at it, like NFTs are like basically a certificate of authenticity, right? That's like essentially what it boils down to, that you can create it, you can verify it, and just empowers the creator, no middleman required. It's just the creator and the buyer, the fan of the artwork or the fan of like the production or any kind of content that's created with NFT is sort of like, eliminates the middleman, which is really powerful. But since we're like, we're all, glorifying NFTs, and I'm a big believer in NFTs. I'm kind of curious about your take. What are the challenges with NFTs, if there's any, and stuff, like, at least from what you're seeing and stuff?
I would say the hype doesn't necessarily always match the reality. Like, there's this sort of magic that people think that you get with an NFT. Like, I'm gonna trade it, and all my royalties forever are gonna come back to me. Like, there's some magic way for you to control how an asset gets traded forever and ever if it's outside of your platform. And then they're like surprised. Or this idea of survivability. I deployed my video or image on AWS, and I stopped paying my hosting bill, and the JPEG's gone. Like it's just magically going to last forever. So there's a lot of wishful thinking, and there's still technology that underpins it. There's still the question of what happens if that person doesn't pay his hosting bill. Well, it disappears. At least the asset does if it's not on a blockchain.
Right.
I absolutely agree with that. And it's funny. I was thinking, I first got my start and spent a lot of time in the blockchain space, the things that were outside of cryptocurrency. And you would hear a lot of people make extraordinary claims, and you're hearing that again today with NFTs. That's kind of what motivated us to start Unifty. We did not want to see extraordinary claims be made, and people kind of face the reality after making large investments and say, well, actually, I can't do any of the things I promised my investors. We wanted to make the tools, the utilities available, affordable, useful, so people can actually see what they can and can't do and build from there. And of course, as they add more to it, that's an achievable thing, and we will continue to iterate. We will see what the next thing is, built on top of NFTs, built on top of things like DeFi, or lots of this other interesting innovation in crypto. But I think one of the other big challenges I'll highlight is decentralization. We talk about decentralization. How important is that? Who's that important to? Within the contracts themselves, a lot of people don't realize, and I think as Reuven pointed out, a lot of these things are happening inside of centralized services. Making that a conscious choice that people are able, without having a lot of technological background, understand why it's important and how to do it, is very critical in lowering that barrier to entry and making something sustainable. So we're very strong believers of that. We're trying to make this as decentralized as possible and give the keys back to the creators.
Amazing. I believe we're at time, so I want to thank both of you, Colin and Reuven, for this insightful morning discussion on NFT. For anyone who are listening, I would encourage you all to test out Unifty in an award pool. I'm going to be testing out award pool. I've already tested Unifty, but like I'll test out award pool after this session and stuff. I'm so excited. So thank you both.
Thank you very much.
And we're going to take it to Gab to introduce our next